took a long break during the off season, but we're back now after the first preseason game. I think everybody's a little bit excited. I know we are, as you can tell. I'm all got my colors flying, and we're ready to rock and be on more regularly during the season. So, Pierre, man, how you been? I haven't seen you in a while.
Man, what's going on, man? I mean, you had a nice little vacation, I see, which is always good. And I'm actually liking the Bills game in the background, man. That's actually pretty nice, man. But yeah, I mean, just here, man, just loving these Bills, man. I'm sure we have a lot of stuff to talk about today, and I mean, whenever you're ready, man, let's just dive right into this.
Yeah, so it's been a very cool preseason being a Buffalo Bills fan, and I think everything kind of led up to yesterday, seeing these guys put the jerseys on, and I know it's not a typical live game, that we're not showing everything that we're going to do, but I think people got a read on finally how this team's going to operate, and I think that is cause for excitement in Buffalo. It was exactly what I thought it would be on both sides of the ball, and everything that we've read, I think, is coming true. I mean, is that the same what you saw?
Yeah. I was definitely liking the up-tempo offense. That was something that I kind of thought that it wasn't going to look as smooth as what it did. And I was also really trying to look and see how the coaching was going to pan out. So that was definitely something that I was pretty intrigued about. In regards to the play, man, what were your thoughts on E.J. Manuel?
Well, EJ did a little bit of both. He impressed me, and also kind of showed a lot of what people say about him in the negative. I didn't see him really go through progressions. I don't know if that was something that the coaching staff, just put in some quick plays and said, read these one or two progressions and then run. Don't really know what the coaching staff was doing, but it looked like after that first option, if the first option wasn't open, he got antsy, and it almost appeared as a little bit of panic. But he made nice runs out of a couple plays. He didn't really push the ball downfield except for that one touchdown pass, and so there was a lot of short passes. It just didn't look entirely comfortable in the offense yet, but he's a rookie. I mean, the stats look good, but those stats didn't really come until the second, third string defenses got on the field. I was a little disappointed in how quickly the offense got started, but a lot of that was field position. Robert Woods fumbled that punt. That kind of put us, on like the 4 or 5 yard line, so it's hard to really build momentum there. The fumble handoff with CJ, that kind of blew an opportunity to play against their starters, and you only get those 2-3 series to play against starting defense in the preseason. So I didn't get to see a lot against the starters, which I would have liked to see a little bit more there.
Yeah. I mean, to all your points, you definitely make some, solid points, man. Now, I actually wrote down a couple things that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned. Now, yeah, EJ did, he started off slow. He did seem like, he was a rookie in the beginning. He did a lot of the throws that he made in the beginning, they kind of seemed to be off target, of course. He kind of seemed a bit nervous, but, like you said, whenever it's your first, ever game as a rookie quarterback, I give him a pass on those. Now, as far as the reads, though, I think he made, most of the correct reads. If you want to say that, his progression wasn't all that, I can probably argue with that a little bit. Now, I think that, Nick Hackett's, play calling in the beginning was more so geared to make sure that, E.J. Manuel, doesn't lose any confidence. He wanted to give him, those short passing games or short passing plays, to make sure that, he's able to, complete those high percentage plays. Now, in regards to the first string, yeah, you're absolutely right. I would have loved to see a little more production against the first teamers. He did end out, pretty strong. Now, people might say it was against the second and third stringers, but he still made the plays. His reads seemed pretty legit in that 2-minute drive. Overall, he didn't look horrible, and that was one of the things that fans just have to understand. In my opinion, it wasn't a bad performance. Now, it wasn't a great one, like you said, but it wasn't a bad performance. There's one more point that I want to bring up, is that he had those two plays where it was 3rd and 7, and he ran for 24 yards to keep the drive alive. And then there was another, 4-yard run that, it kept the chains moving. Now, I'm pretty sure that was one of the main reasons why we drafted E.J. Manuel, for certain plays like that. Now, I know he's not a running quarterback, or we don't want him to be a running quarterback, but, with his athleticism, in order to do plays like that, that's what I took out of it as a huge plus.
Yeah, to that though, it was because of broken plays. We don't want to rely on broken plays, getting 25-yard gains. It's nice that he can do that. One thing I'd like to see when he does do that is a little bit more ball security. If you watch that John Gruden interview with him of the QB camp, John Gruden mentioned to him, even though he's got the ball tucked, it's out here a little bit, and kind of running around loosey-goosey, and then at the end of the play, he kind of it's an awkward dive forward on his knees. It was, he's got to learn to make that QB slide. It's not college anymore. Those guys are headhunting for him when he's out in the open field. And I can just see him now, running quarterbacks don't last long, so he's going to have to use his legs in these first couple of years as we learn this new offense. So as he's using those legs, though, he just needs to learn to protect the ball and himself. He's got to slide after a certain point so he doesn't take that nasty hit, separate his shoulder or something stupid. And that's something that will come with time. Sure, after that, Ron Hackett was excited but said, hey, buddy, hit the turf before somebody kills you because, Patriots players are dirty and they're going to hit him if he's out in the open field.
Of course, his ball security, it wasn't a main problem in college, but, you do have a point. He does have to make sure, he keeps that ball, tucked in tight. And as far as the slide, one thing that I've noticed about E.J. Manuel is that he knows how to avoid those big hits.
Well, my takes on the game were the defense showed that they are going to be more aggressive than last year's. It looked a lot like we were running 4-3 fronts and that old school Bears 4-6 defense type stuff, which I think people were expecting a little bit of more 3-4, but it seemed to be we had at least 4 guys on the line at all times. There was some aggression, but at the same time I did see them ripping off 6 to 8 yard runs. It looked like there were some big holes in the running game still, and there was a couple plays where we just got real burnt off the ball. I think coming up here in this game, Hasselbeck hits T.Y. Hilton on a 30-yard touchdown pass, and it was just Ron Brooks just got burnt, and he was all alone on an island, and that's what scares me about this. Ron Brooks had a bad game. Even Stephon Gilmore gave up some plays that he normally doesn't. I mean, these cornerbacks are going to have to get used to being left on an island if we're going to be a high-pressure D, and that pressure's got to get there when you're dealing with an elite quarterback like Andrew Luck, or even a guy like Hasselbeck, who's seen almost every type of defense. These guys know when the pressure's coming where the ball should go. So I think that's been one of my concerns about this defense is there's a lot of youth in the defensive backs, and guys like Brady, Manning, quarterbacks like that are going to take advantage of they're going to light up that defensive backfield if we don't get pressure on them. So I think I posted in the Facebook page, high risk, high reward defense. I think we'll get a lot of sacks, get a lot of turnovers, but I see a lot of big plays being given up to more elite teams.
In regard to the pressure, what I didn't like, instead of that very, very first play where Kyle Williams was able to get in, the pressure up the middle wasn't what I expected. Yeah, we had a couple of blitz packages, but it seemed like, Andrew Luck and even Matt Hasselbeck, like you said, they were able to get some solid plays off. Now, Ron Brooks did have, in my opinion, a pretty horrible game. I know he had that turnover, but we're paying him to cover. And he definitely didn't do that. Now, Aaron Williams, in my opinion, it looks like he wants to be the starting strong safety, man. I mean, he was he made a couple plays out there. He was hitting pretty hard. Now, Denoris Searcy, in my opinion, it seems like he's afraid to hit, man. He was afraid to make plays out there. He seemed, pretty tentative. Creston Butler, he definitely, deserves to get a deeper look, man. He made a couple plays out there. Jonathan Meeks, in my opinion, he could have made a play, but he dropped the interception, so he might get a little bit of a pass. I didn't really hear anything on Duke Williams at all, man. He was pretty quiet out there.
No.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think the defense, the third, fourth quarter, honestly, the whole game in the third, fourth quarter, Bills fans got real excited about the score of the game, and you can't take anything away from the score of a preseason game. You really got to look at the matchups. Like, that first two possessions, the Bills lost, and that was the starters. The Colts were able to really move the ball against the Bills. I think with the 1 3-and-out. Other than that, they were able to move the ball and get into field goal range, create a turnover. And then, the middle of the pack, that second quarter, Bills kind of came back, took a lead. And then third, fourth quarter, doesn't really matter. Those guys are all fighting for roster spots on both sides. Butler had a pick six, but, does that really... Is that the kind of play that you would expect from him against the ones? I don't think so. You really got to take all preseason stuff with a grain of salt. I think the biggest game is going to be the third game of the preseason. I expect the starting unit to be out there a little bit more, and we'll get a better look at the starting unit of another team and really kind of see where we're at going into week one.
Yeah. I mean, you make some good points, but in offense to all those players who made plays, I mean, they had to be put in position to make plays. Now, Jamal Roll, or I forget his first name, but I think he's a sleeper, man. Like, I like his coverage ability. He seems like, he was able to get off of his break. His quick step back to the ball seems to be, pretty legit, man. And I think, he might get a bigger look out there.
Kiko looked good. He got talking about pressure up the middle. Though he didn't get the sack, but he got to Luck right up the middle and caused a bad throw. And that's just as good of a sack, if you ask me. And then he had the one break up in the end zone, so he looked like he fits the part just fine. But as far as the cornerback depth goes, I trust what Doug Marrone and Pettin are doing there, and if those guys in the third, fourth quarters, if they're not getting first team looks in practice, I trust that they're not first team ready guys. I'm sure they're going to get a deeper look, and they'll probably hang on to a handful of them. But there's a reason they're not getting the first team looks in camp, and guys like Ron Brooks and McKelvin are. It might not look good in the preseason game, Ron Brooks, but I'm sure that he has more of the skill set needed to play the slot position. And that's another thing we got to remember. Brooks isn't going to be the outside cornerback most of the year. If McKelvin can get healthy, he looks like he's probably going to be the guy. And that's just going to be a weak position for the Bills this year, and they're going to have to make up for it with pass rush.
It is. But I mean, we've had trouble getting to the quarterback, man. So hopefully, like you said, hopefully we're able to get that, outside pressure. Now,
Right.
Now, what do you think of our wide receivers, man?
Nothing really stood out to me. I think Woods made a nice catch that was impressive. But again, EJ didn't push the ball downfield, so I didn't see, I saw a lot of short routes, a lot of timing routes. I got to see a little bit more out of the wideouts. I mean, Stevie's going to be healthy. We know what we're getting with Stevie. And the rest of the guys, I think we just need to see more time. The body of work's too small right now to really make a definitive impression about how they're going to turn out. But I think it's going to be fine, because if you saw anything from last night, Nate Hackett wasn't lying when he said CJ's going to touch the ball until he throws up. We're just going to pound the rock, and go from there.
That's true. I mean, I kind of like how they were, able to get open. Like you said, they weren't getting the ball too much. I know Marcus Easley, had a big game, stats-wise. Sampson looked like he's able to make plays, man. He made a couple of tough catches. And Kaufman, also made some pretty good catches as well. So I think what I learned is that Brad Smith might be out of a job, man, because, it's like, you guys been saying about his contract. I know he got
Well,
he restructured.
he renegotiated.
Yeah, but still, man. I mean, we have depth at wide receiver. The running back depth, in my opinion, I don't think it's that deep, man. What are you gonna say?
Oh, that's a great point, though. I mean, it might not be as deep as we would like it to be, but look at some of the other teams in the league. We got CJ and Fred, who are two starters on any team in the league. Tashard Choice is a good third down back. I know he talks a lot of crap and he's mouthy, but he's a good third down type, goal line back. You know what you're getting with Tashard. And then maybe one other guy gets kept. I don't think Gaskins is gonna make a huge impact in the NFL. He runs too upright. But we got CJ and Freddie. That's more.
Now, as far as the play calling, are you a fan of this up-tempo offense?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. Again, it's hard to tell in the preseason. I'd like to see. We'll know a lot more week one. Can a guy like C.J. Spiller just keep getting the ball handed off to him every 15 seconds for an entire afternoon? That's a lot of plays. That's a lot of work. Is the offensive line going to hold up in the third, fourth quarter of a game, running plays every 10, 15 seconds? I think that's just something we'll have to see. It's an interesting experiment. I think a lot of teams are moving to a more up-tempo style. So I think that's the trend in the NFL, and we'll see. I guess, they've been conditioning to run this style of offense, and, we'll see how really week one's our big test, so we'll find out then.
The MVP of the game was hands down, Jeff Toole, man. He had an amazing game. He definitely looked like, I actually posted on Facebook, is that, Jeff Toole is a third stringer, and he played against, other third stringers and absolutely dominated. Now, do you think that, Kevin Kolb is a little bit more worried about his, even making a roster right now?
No. I don't think he's worried about making the roster. I think, Kevin Kolb's going to get opportunities in the next two preseason games here. We play Friday, I think. So I think all signs indicate that he'll probably play. And I think Cobb's going to stay on the roster just because if you cut him, you have no quarterbacks with experience in the NFL. And even if Kolb doesn't play this season, that's a vital thing to have on the sideline for Nate Hackett and E.J. Manuel, to have a quarterback that's played against teams like the Patriots and won in New England, holding a clipboard and saying, like, look, EJ, this is what I'm seeing. There was a good press conference, or maybe it was just an interview, where Kolb was saying, I'm not telling EJ what to do, but when he's struggling with his footwork and I can see him struggling, I say, hey, it took me 2 years to really get that down. And I think that's vital, and the Bills won't cut him because he is such a wealth of knowledge for both Hackett and EJ.
Yeah, definitely. We kind of have like a little, Redskins, 2.0, it seems like, man. We have the RG.
Here. This is my favorite part of the game. Sorry to interrupt
go ahead,
you.
Go ahead.
Favorite part of the game.
All right, zoom
coming
in.
up in the background.
Zoom in.
And I know that you say Toole was the MVP of the game, but I think what really stood out to me is Flash Goodwin, Marquise Goodwin's speed. Really stood out to me. I've heard about it. I've seen. That one went out of the end zone. Never mind. Got you all hyped up. I think it was the one before that.
He could have easily had, two kick returns for a touchdown, man. I mean, he definitely showed that, he has that speed, man. And one thing I like about him on the kickoff returns is that he hits the hole. He doesn't dance too much. He just goes, north and south, man.
He's real fast.
Yeah, and that was, definitely.
He's faster than everybody on the field.
Oh, easily. Now, I know C.J. Spiller, he says that, he's the fastest on the team. I don't know, man. Goodwin might have him beat by a couple steps, man. But there was one.
I'd like to see him, TJ, and Spiller run a race.
Oh yeah, all day. Now there's one thing about the game that I love. We looked well coached. I'll definitely give us that. The offensive line.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of penalties. There was that one penalty on special teams that I saw. I didn't see much else.
No. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we looked like, we were well coached. The offensive line looks pretty solid, man. I mean, we were protecting, both EJ and Jeff. Now, our run blocking, I'm not really sure about, but our pass pro looks pretty solid. Now, our play calling seemed to be something that we might have to look deeper into. It seemed pretty consistent to me. It was definitely obvious that Nate Hackett was giving Jeff Toole all of the aggressive play calls. Toole was slinging.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
And one last thing is that every offseason, every training camp, and every preseason, I always get worried about injuries, man. And for us to go through our first full preseason game, not really having any major injuries. I know Welch, our backup left tackle, he got banged up a little bit, but we were able to get through the preseason without any major injuries, man, and that's definitely a plus.
Well, but the thing that concerns me, and I felt like I saw it coming too, was Stevie Johnson and a hamstring injury. How serious is this injury? The Bills aren't really talking about it. They're just, he's not practicing, he's not playing. They say, it'll be a few weeks. I feel like this is history repeating itself with Stevie Johnson, and I know he had the groin injury back-to-back years. Now it's a hamstring thing, and it's, I'm sure he'll play through it, but, how serious is that injury? That's going to be something. And McKelvin seems to be on and off. He plays 3 practices, and then he sits. And so, where's his health? Don't really know much about his injury. Interested to see where he's going to be at. And then the development of Scott Chandler and his knee and him coming along. It seemed as though he took a couple steps forward and he was ahead of Kyle Williams, and then we get to this preseason game and Chandler's not playing and Kyle Williams is. So I'm a little concerned as to did he take a step back and nobody's talking about it? Because that's another thing of judging E.J. Manuel's performance. I mean, Stevie Johnson's not out on the field, Brad Smith's not out on the field, Scott Chandler's not out on the field. So those are 3 targets that have been hit quite a bit in practice that weren't there for him.
Yeah, that's true. And now you bring up Chandler, and you have you kind of remind me of our tight end depth, man. It seems like we're pretty deep at tight end now. I mean, Doran Dickerson, he made some pretty good plays in the game. Now I know we drafted Chris Gregg, where he seems pretty solid. He's been having a pretty solid camp so far. So I mean, we could have 3 solid tight ends right now.
Yeah, well, and Lee Smith seems to be above them on the depth chart right now. I'm not a huge Lee Smith fan, but that doesn't mean the coaches don't see something in him that I'm not seeing. I think he's a better blocker. He's a better blocker than most of the other tight ends. So, it's extra lineman. So yeah, I think there's good depth there. But I'm really interested to see Scott Chandler, if he can come back from that knee injury and be the guy that he was last year, which was a huge red zone target, a bailout guy, which is EJ's going to need that this year. Now, to end out the show, actually, did you get to see any of the other AFC East preseason games?
Yeah, I definitely did. I saw the Patriots versus the Eagles. Now, what I took out of that
Patriots
game,
look scary, man.
Man, I'm talking about. Man, but what I took out of that game is that our run defense better be prepared for the Patriots week 1, man. Their running game seems pretty solid, and they did that against first teamers. So we have to watch out.
And they go 3-4 deep running back wise. I mean, LeGarrette Blount's their third back, and he dropped like a 60-yard run on the Eagles. The Patriots just year in, year out. I know a lot of Bills fans are excited because the 2 tight ends are out and Welker's gone, but year in, year out, they just replace these guys and keep moving forward. and all reports, the Eagles and Patriots practiced together all week leading up to that game, and there was reports coming out of there that Brady was picking the Eagles apart. So the Bills, I'm a little more nervous. I was a little excited for this game, and I'm still excited for it, but the Patriots are still the Patriots. They're still the team to beat in the AFC East.
They still have Tom Brady, man. I mean, when you have arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, and he's somewhat still in his prime, I mean, you always have to be worried about that. How EJ played, in the very beginning, it's a little bit, discouraging because he did seem like he wasn't able to, accurately make all the throws. But, if we look at how he started and how he ended, it could be one of those things where, maybe EJ is just a slow starter in general. And then he picks it up, later in the games. But as far as the other, AFC games, Jets, I gotta say nothing about the Jets, man. I mean, we all seen the Jets. Mark Sanchez looks horrible. They look pretty bad, man.
Yeah. And Miami, I watched that game too. Miami didn't show me a ton in that game, so I'm interested to watch their next couple of games. I think they're probably one of the more interesting teams in the AFC East this year just because of all the moves they made, and there's so much pressure to win now because they spent so much money. I think, like they said at the beginning of this game, the broadcasters, the Bills are building through the draft. They're bringing in these young guys. So I think the pressure is a little bit different. People are thinking, this is a building project. In the next 2 years, they should be a playoff team where Miami brought in free agents to win now. And if they don't make the playoffs, that's a failed season where people don't expect the Bills to make the playoffs. So if they do, it's fantastic. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch the next couple of Miami games and see how this whole team gels together because I didn't see a playoff caliber team that can compete with the Patriots yet. Yeah, not yet. So, but again, week one, man, it was so good to watch some football though. Like, I had that preseason live app, and I'm just flipping through games, and I'm like, dude, this is the life, man.
I mean, football's back, man. That's definitely one of those things where most fans just no matter what it was, just to be able to watch football just by itself, man, is
no doubt.
It's definitely a blessing, man.
And now we're about exactly 27 days from kickoff, so less than a month. Right now, we're gonna plan on doing a show after every preseason game leading up to the season, and then probably do a real big season preview right before the Pats-Bills kickoff. I'm actually going to be at that game, Pats-Bills, so hopefully I'll get some pre/post-game video up for you, and it's here, man. It's coming now. It's just a matter of time.
Yep, there we go, man. All right, guys, so make sure you guys follow us on Twitter, like our fan page. So yeah, man. See you guys next week.
Yeah. Again, sorry for the break, guys. It's been a long off season. I had to get some other stuff done in order to do a bunch of shows throughout the season here.
But we're back now, fellas.
So, stay up on it.
All right, guys.